Hey, what's up? This is Chosen. Hope you're having a fantastic day, and this is going to be a Diablo 4 video talking about what I think is going to be the most popular class based on what we know as of right now when Diablo 4 launches here in a couple weeks. Let's get into it. Alrighty, so right above my webcam here, I've got a poll that I've done in the community here on the channel, and what you can see is that right now, it's actually a little bit surprising to me, but the Rogue is outscaling as the most popular class, and then the Sorcerer is at number 2. Now, I would have thought that polling here on the channel would indicate that the Sorcerer is going to be the most popular class. It's that typical mage, wizard, DPS build, and the Sorcerer is also performing very well in lots of different areas of testing the early game leveling process. But it's also worth noting that any polling I do here on the channel is going to indicate more of a serious player, experienced kind of crowd, like the people that are following Diablo 4 right now and searching for YouTube videos and voting on polls on a YouTube channel are probably going to be the more dedicated kind of RPG veteran players. So I think it would be a little bit different if you were to poll like out in the public, like the general civilian gamer population that is going to be a little bit more casual. I think you may get a little bit of a different percentage breakdown. Because typically what you usually see on games like Diablo 4 when they release a class, the like staple for the beginner type casual players, just their gut instinct to pick when they dive into the game, is usually the barbarian type of class, the sword and board, the hack and slash, the run in there and just melee stuff down tends to be like the go-to. So for the overall population as a whole, I expect the Barbarian, you can see the Barbarian's close. It's at 21% versus 26%, so it's coming in at number 3 behind the Rogue and the Sorcerer here on the channel. But I think if you scaled it over the course of the entire world population, Barbarian would probably be slightly ahead, up in the upper 20s. But then as far as the population as a whole, like with new players and experienced players and everything, I'm a little bit shocked that Rogue overtook Sorcerer. It's because we're seeing this twisting blade. Can I zoom in on this a little bit? This twisting blades ability is looking just insane for leveling. And I definitely played with some good friends that were crushing it on Rogue. We were doing some things in our Discord server where we were like picking a certain boss and then testing different builds and testing different classes and then comparing who was killing it the fastest, like doing a speed run, like, hey, I killed this boss in 12 seconds with this build. Oh, I killed the boss in 7 seconds with this build. And we were kind of trying to compare a bunch of different play styles and classes. And the Rogue was cranking out insane damage. And also, I had a good friend of mine, BGE, that I was playing the world boss with on Rogue. And we were talking about like what our damage numbers were and how hard we were hitting the world boss and all of that. And the Rogue was absolutely slapping. And it's got a bunch of mobility. It's got a bunch of different ways that it can be played, different play styles, different utility. So really a pretty solid class. If you're just looking for like, hey, what class should I play that is the most consistent and it's probably going to have the most options available for me, I would probably say to go with the Rogue, honestly. So really not too surprising when you think about it in the grand scheme of things that the Rogue ends up pulling out very well and a dedicated player base that has a really good following of kind of what's going on in the landscape of Diablo 4. But I think personally I'm going to be going with Sorcerer, and I expect Sorcerer to be right up there with Rogue. Rogue and Sorcerer among the dedicated player base of Diablo 4 probably going to be the number 2 option right behind Rogue that people go with, and probably the option that I go with personally on launch. Right now I'm leaning towards starting as a Sorcerer just to have the consistent ranged damage, and hopefully it ends up scaling in the end game, which is important to note that we don't really know anything as of right now about the end game and what classes are going to be meta in this first iteration of Diablo 4's release. The classes that we think are bad or maybe are getting less picked, they may be completely insane, broken, mandatory in every group, meta for all the group farming and stuff. We're going to have to kind of wait and see how the end game it shakes out. But I think I'm going to be starting Sorcerer because you've got different options available to you. You can either go with like the lazy fire build where you just drop hydras or drop meteors, apply your burns, drop your firewalls on boss fights, let the boss kind of walk in and out of the firewalls and play a lazy play style. Or you could play a little bit more active and teleport around and go the lightning build and throw chain lightnings everywhere. Or the cold does a really good job of kind of slowing things down and proccing vulnerable. So I do think there are some really good options on the sorcerer and lots of different play styles that I think are going to be very viable, doing a lot of damage. So I would guess that rogue and sorcerer will be 1 and 2 among the dedicated player base, and then third I think is going to be the necromancer. There was a point in time where I would have thought that necro would be maybe even number 1, because necro and summons and all of that are always insanely popular in games like Diablo 4. People love playing these summoner builds, especially people that lean towards the more casual crowd that just like to command an army and run around killing stuff. So I do think summon necro will be popular, and we saw the skeletons get buffed a little bit. They were dying a little bit too fast, and Blizzard came out and addressed that very quickly, like within 8 hours of the last server launch being live. We saw these skeletons get buffed. Now, for me personally, I was down to Necromancer or Sorcerer. When Diablo Immortal came out, I was thinking about maining Necromancer or Demon Hunter. I ended up picking Demon Hunter and regretting it, wishing I would have mained Necromancer. So I was like, I'm not going to make that mistake again. For Diablo 4, I'm going to main Necro. And gosh, should I? I'm still debating it. That's how hard it is for me. I'm still wondering if I should do the summon necro first. I really do want to test out the summon necro build. I like that playstyle, but the sorcerer, I'm really loving the utility and the different options I have for cranking out damage with the sorcerer, and obviously teleport. I mean, you can't go wrong with having teleport. That's probably going to be a really good skill in the end game. We saw that in Diablo 2. Obviously, everybody wants to start a sorceress when there is a new ladder launch, because sorceress can kind of zoom around the map and do a bunch of elemental damage. But yeah, anyway, I think that will definitely be the top 3 classes among the dedicated player base. It'll be Rogue, Sorcerer, and Necromancer as the first 3, and then Barbarian and Druid will bring up the rear. I think there's a couple different reasons for that. I think that the melee is going to feel a little bit more clunky to play, especially early game, especially in the leveling process. People are going to want to either run around with summons or run around casting spells and have the option to do range damage, or have the mobility and the massive DPS potential of the rogue. But again, that doesn't mean the Barbarian and the Druid are not going to be good picks. If your heart is set on picking the Barbarian or the Druid and they are really calling out to you, then do it. Have fun. It's not very often in our lives that we get to experience a big launch of a game like Diablo 4. I mean, when did Diablo 3 come out? Like 2011? I mean, it's been over a decade. Like, have fun with it. Play the class you want to play. You're going to have plenty of time to try out other builds and do the meta or whatever. So if you want to play the Barbarian or the Druid, definitely do it. But there's always going to be that section of really try-hard players, especially in the dedicated player base, and the people that really want to go hard in the paint on the game. Those people I expect to go with Sorcerer, Rogue, or Necro out the gate. But like I said, we may end up seeing Barbarian and Druid be hyper meta in the end game and for like groups of 4 farming group content. And because of the overall general popularity of the Barbarian archetype class, I expect that to be number 4, and then the Druid to be bringing up the rear at number 5. Again, not meaning the Druid is a trash class or a bad pick. It's just you got to be able to rank them 1 through 5 in terms of popularity, and that is kind of my first inkling and how I would do it. So if you make me nail down one final prediction of what is going to be the most popular classes ranked 1 to 5 between the dedicated player base, like the people that are actually going to be long-term in the Diablo 4 community, I'm gonna go with the hot take, and I'm gonna say that Sorcerer ends up being the number 1 choice. I know polling is showing the Rogue, but I think when push comes to shove on launch, amongst the dedicated player base, Sorcerer is going to be my pick and prediction for the most popular class. At number 2, it's going to be close between the Necro and Rogue. It could go either way. At number 2, gosh, I think it's going to be like within 1%. I'll go with Rogue because that is what the polling is showing. So at number 2, I'm going to go with Rogue. Number 3 is obviously going to be Necro. And then number 4 is going to be Barbarian. And then number 5 is going to be Druid. And again, that's what I'm talking about amongst the dedicated players, not the overall player base as a whole. Like I said, that would be a much different list, with possibly Barbarian flipping all the way from number 4 to number 1. So that's my prediction, and I'm sticking to it, and I can't wait until the game is out and I can actually dive into providing game content instead of just talking and theory crafting and having discussions every day. Really excited to get in and be able to play here in early June. So let me know down below where you agree or disagree. Always love hearing your opinions, and remember to subscribe on your way out if you enjoy daily Diablo 4 content. I will see you soon in the next video. Peace.